Hello all and Happy New Year. It's that time of the month again. The PlayStation Plus free games collection is out and ready to download. Now it's the start of a new year, and for January 2017, Sony have decided to grace us with 5 games to entice yet more people to the Plus side of PSN. Well, I say 5 games, I mean 4, and an insult to gaming consoles, but we'll get to that later. The games we have this month are The Swindle, Titan Souls, Day of the Tentacle Remastered, and This War of Mine, The Little Ones. The mathematically savvy of you will notice that I only named 4 instead of the apparent 5, and that brings us to Azkend 2. Azkend 2 represents everything that is wrong with PlayStation Plus right now, and in a lot of ways what is wrong with console gaming using digital storefronts. Azkend 2 is a combination of match 3 or more of something and find the picture games that unfortunately grace our mobile phones in an impossible to count number of variations, as well as oozing out of the grimy cracks that is Facebook's attempts at video games. Azkend 2 is dog shit. It's worse than dog shit, it's dog shit that's been eaten and excreted 3 times over, because even fresh dog shit is more original than this digital tripe. I don't understand you, Sony. Your main marketing message for the PS4 was that this is for the players, and yet you populate your promotional online service reward package with something that is for the stay-at-home parents with nothing to do but crawl around Facebook sending game invites and passively aggressively commenting on acquaintances' holiday snaps. Suffice it to say that I dislike its presence on PSN Store, let alone the fact that its currently free price tag encourages people to play it, and I use the word play in its broadest sense. Anyway, moving on to The Swindle. Released in July 2015 on every relevant platform and some non-relevant platforms, yes, I'm looking at you, Wii U. The Swindle is a stealth action game developed and published by Size 5 Games from Time Gentlemen Please fame. The game takes place in a steampunk world, hinted at by its title tagline, a steampunk cybercrime caper, where you play as a master burglar in London who has 100 days to heist the ever-loving shit out of London, working his way up the security ranks until he can get to the Big Evil Surveillance Corp and steal the Big Evil Surveillance MacGuffin. Well, at least that is until you die and come back as False Teeth McWalkingstick, or any of the other randomly generated characters. You see, when you die, you get to control a new avatar, but keep all of your upgrades. Kinda takes the fear of death away, especially considering the game gives you 100 days. I don't mind a ticking clock in games, but unless I know what that number signifies, I will not take it seriously. Is 100 days a lot to do? Do I need to count every precious second, or can I repeatedly jump off cliffs until I get to play as the crotchy granddad again because I'm role-playing as the surviving Cray twin? All in all, the procedural level design works well, providing fresh challenges as long as it doesn't level the terrain past your upgrades so you can't jump high enough to reach the door, and the mix between patient security pattern learning and parkour rooftop wall jumping keeps the pace going and creates tension in all the right places. Not a bad game, but by no means an outstanding one. Now, Titan Souls. Released in April 2015 and developed by Acid Nerve, Titan Souls was published by Devolver Digital, who are the publishers of Hotline Miami and Serious Sam, so there's your gaming pedigree. I have to admit, I was initially hesitant of Titan Souls. Its pixel art style put me off almost immediately, as I'd seen this way too many times in 2016, and it very rarely pulled off the nostalgic feeling they were trying to evoke. However, once the core game started, I was immediately won over by just how goddamn clean and smooth the animations are. There's no fluff or faff. Everything that is there has a mechanical purpose without embellishment. I mean, I suppose I'm getting ahead of myself. Titan Souls at its core is labelled as an action game. However, I feel that this is a genre that receives little to no attention in its originality. The only enemies in Titan Souls are the bosses, and each one is more of a tricky bastard than the last. The combat is simple: 1 arrow, 1 hit, 1 kill. Of course, finding where to stick that arrow is the challenge, and the 1 hit, 1 kill part applies to your squishy self as well. This is a boss rush type game, and it never ceases to amaze me when it's pulled off well. It's so simple, it's so arcadey, and yet it drags out hours of my free time, like collecting all the collectibles in a Ubisoft open world. I've seen it before from Fury last year, and even further back to Shadows of the Colossus on PS2. This genre is a rarity, and for a good reason, because if done wrong it's empty, but for those who have tried hath prevailed, and it makes me look forward to whatever these developers have cooking next. Moving on to the main eventers of the month, up first we have Day of the Tentacle Remastered. Now, initially released back in June 1993, this remastered version came out in March 2016. This is a LucasArts Double Fine classic. Day of the Tentacle is a point-and-click graphic adventure story game, and if I have to explain any of this to you, then you're probably too young to care. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I fucking hate point-and-click adventures with a passion. I get that its masterful storytelling is what you're there for, but I can't get over how butt-fuckingly stupid its puzzle-solving mechanics can be. And no matter how quirky and original it gets, nothing can distract me from the fact that barely interacting with what I'm seeing on screen. Don't get me wrong, I love what Monkey Island and Grim Fandango did for gaming in its storytelling infancy, and I won't deny that these are classics of a generation I'm too young to be a part of. I don't like them, but I respect them for what they are. but I don't understand why they keep bringing these out on fucking consoles. It's a PC game, for fuck's sake, and it's a PC game for a reason. Point and fucking click. Since when did the DualShock 4 come with things that point and click? Sony, if you really must insist on giving us real PC games, then at least make an attempt at real keyboard and mouse support. But that is a conversation for another day, because now we come to our fourth. Yes, fourth and only fourth, and never fifth, because fuck you, anything that's got fifth attributed to it. Or two. Or Azkend. I'm talking, of course, about This War of Mine, The Little Ones. Now, This War of Mine, released in November 2014 for Windows and January 2016 for PS4 and Xbox One, is a survival game developed and published by 11-bit studios. This game made some serious waves back in 2014 for being a hard game to play, not so much for its difficulty, which is quite thematically granite, but for the themes it brings to the broken, splintered, bombshell table. Upon starting the game, you're greeted with a quote, "In modern war, you'll die like a dog for no good reason," and it's a hauntingly accurate description of your experiences within the game. You play as a group of 2 to 5 civilians who are sheltering in a run-down house in a fictional country suffering through a civil war. Your band of unmerry men and women must band together and survive by scavenging what they can from the shelled streets while defending themselves from desperate civilians turned bandits. During the day, you'll manage the shelter using whatever materials and items you've gathered during nightly scavenging runs to craft improvements to the shelter, or just basic necessities such as a food stove or rain collector, as you desperately try to scrap together enough food and drink to keep your friends alive. If it sounds like I'm being rather mechanical in my description of the game, it's not out of boredom, I promise you. It's because my heart has been ripped out and my emotions set on fire as I watch people that I grew to care for waste slowly away from hunger because they refused to eat because I made them kill a homeless man to get his rat steak so they wouldn't die. Suffice it to say, this game is a real fun sucker, but that's not to say it isn't entertaining. No, entertaining is still too positive. It's engaging. I haven't in recent memory played a game that does so little to connect you to its characters and yet gives you such a gut punch at their suffering. I barely know anything about Bruno. All I know is that he's a good cook and smokes all the cigarettes that I need for trading. It seems a bit of a dick really, but when it comes down to the why, he was able to bring home a small morsel of food back to the shelter for his 2 emotionally broken friends, cook them up a meal with the last amount of resources that allowed them to carry on another day in their broken state while he starved to death overnight. Bruno is a fucking hero and I won't hear otherwise. Because that's what this game does. It makes you their equal. There isn't a need for exposition or sob stories when we could all be bombed the next day. Let's just focus on staying alive. The stories can wait until tomorrow. All in all, I'd almost forgive Sony for including that which must not be named in its free games collection. This War of Mine is what the reward package should be about. Games that are small but with a degree of quality, short experiences that remind us that quality does not always cost £50. It should be a beckoning finger guiding you into the treasure trove of the hidden gems in the PSN store, not just a handful of whatever isn't selling anymore so they know they're not losing out on profit. You're slipping again, Sony, but the centerpiece is still good. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.